Okay, now we're going to go through and make our form actually check the input that the user gives it to make sure it's somewhat usable. So first thing we'll want to do is create another script file. We'll call this custom valid.js. Okay, and let's add it to v.html. Okay, so first we're going to make a function to check our consent page. This page sort of already has a validating bit on it because it doesn't let you progress unless if you've checked something, but it's good to get some feedback as to why you're not progressing. So that's what these validation functions will do. So function valid consent. Okay, so we're going to have a flag all good, and this is sort of a gatekeeper, so if anything sets this to false, then they can't proceed. Okay, so the consent page only has a single thing on it, this consent continue, which it checks with this is checked function. So custom valid, so I'm going to add that. But it uses the this keyword, and if we're not in the div that it is in, then that this is kind of meaningless to us. So let's copy the ID, and I'm just going to put the ID in there instead. So if it's not checked, so I'm going to use an exclamation mark for not, then it's not all good. Okay, and now I'm going to use an error flagging function, ERR. Okay, so if it's not all good, then show an error. So I'm going to name my error p consent error, ERR. And then I'm going to return all good. Okay, so if it's not checked, all good will be false. So this will return false. And also it will flag this error. If it is checked, then all good will be true, and it will actually turn this error off. So this clears the error as well as shows the error. So let's go to v.html, and we got kind of this ugly little branch code down here. So I am going to copy all of that. Okay, I'm just going to cut it actually. So Control X, and I'm going to go to viewer util. And I'm going to add myself a function, consent branch, and I'm just going to paste it and format it a little better. Okay, so now in my onClick here, I can go if valid consent, then do my consent branch. But I'm not ready to do valid consent yet. I made that error flag, so I need to make an error flag here for it to actually show. So div, and then the class will be error message. Okay, and then this will say please check highlighted field. Okay, and then I also want to revalidate whenever they change this field, so that way I can potentially clear this message. Okay, so let's try this. Okay, so I have custom valid 8. Oh, I forgot to set an ID. So let's go back to v.html. ID equals p-consent error. Refresh, go. Okay, that's better. Now if I check no, clears, and it lets me go. Okay, and that is a simple consent validation, or form validation. So let's go back to our valid. The next one we're going to do is our demographics, and this will require two functions. One function to actually create the errors the first time, and then another function to clear them. So lit p demographics checked equals false. Okay, so this is just going to become true the first time they hit the next button, and that's when we know we can start clearing errors. So function recheck demographics. Okay, so if not p demographics checked, then don't do anything. You know, it's not ready to recheck anything yet. Otherwise, we'll have another function, valid demographics. Which will run. And then if this runs, p demographics checked will equal true. And it's also going to have the same flag. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make these function groups for my other pages, because they will all need this two-function approach from now on. Okay, so this will be trial 1. So control F. Well, that's not what I want. Control F. Okay, and let's do that. And then in selection, replace it with trial 1. No, this would be the second one, so 2. Okay, and then in here, there we go. Okay, and now this will be trial 1. Okay, so now let's actually validate our demographics. So this function, or this page had age, gender, certification, and experience. Okay, so in our age, we need to check this ID with isNum. Actually, I'm just going to do all good. Okay, there we go. So gender will have radio buttons as well as an other. Certification only has radio buttons, and experience also has radio buttons and an other. Okay, so isNum. And I'm getting the ID here for the text field. That should be a string. Okay, so if the age field isn't a number, well, that's not good. Likewise, if gender isn't checked. Okay, so I'm just going to add this isChecked also to cert and experience, because those also have checks. Cert was only 2, and this one was 6. Okay, so let's get my IDs now. So the way this isChecked works is it gets the ID, and then it just appends the numbers to the ID string. So then we need certification. I will do my other box later. So cert. And experience. Okay, and that seems fine. Now let's do our other. Okay, so other actually has its own little clear checks down here. Not clear checks, sorry, is valid other with the text box. So I'm just going to copy this and go to custom valid. Okay, and remove that semicolon. Okay, and go up here to gender, do the same thing. Okay, and let's do an error for demographics. Demographics error. Okay, we'll copy, well, let's see, let's just copy my certification error message. And down here at demographics, let's do P demographics error, and there are multiple fields, so fields. Now I'm going to go to my demographics page. Oops. Refresh, show viewer. Oh, right. I need to actually plug my functions in. So on demographics, on the actual page div, let's do on input equals recheck. And down at the bottom, when we hit our next button, we'll do if demographics, that's a function. Okay, so fresh, go. Okay, there we go. Must have had it misnamed or something. Okay, so now let's see if we can clear this. So hit other, specify some other, no other, specify some other, 3, and it clears, and we're able to progress. Okay, now let's move on to trial 1. This one's going to be a little bit more simple than demographics. We have checkboxes as well as other. So I'm just going to copy and paste these. Fix my tabs. Okay, so let's do those 1 through 5 options. And I'm going to grab p trial 1 abnorm. And in my other, I'm actually just going to grab that function and swap it out. Okay, so let's give ourselves an error message. So normally you would just make one trial validation page and then copy and paste it and just do a keyword replace to make your new trials. But since this is kind of a demo, I have 2 very different types of trial pages, so I can't do that. Let's make my error. Okay, and I'm going to make a second error. Well, this one won't be an error actually. If they don't scroll at all in the image, maybe they thought it was just a regular static X-ray, I'm going to flash up some extra directions for them, letting them know that the image is scrollable. But I don't want this to be read like an error message, so this is going to be a direction message. And these classes are specified in my styles.css. Let's change the ID to ptrial1scroll. So to check if a user has scrolled, I'm going to add another utility function. Let's see, scroll success. Let's make a flag. This will be a variable that you can see anywhere. So user scrolled equals false. If user scrolled, then return. We're only going to check on the very first trial they encounter. If they don't scroll after that, then, I mean, they're probably just trying to mess up or something, you know. We just want to make sure they don't accidentally mess up. Okay, and if they do scroll, it's possible they scrolled because they were directed to do so, so we will want to clear that error message. Okay, let's see. Let's go to valid, and we will check after we flag the initial error. So this all good is both letting us know if there's any errors as well as being a gatekeeper to keep them from proceeding. So we don't want this error to pop up if they scrolled, but we don't want them to, or if they haven't scrolled, but we don't want them to proceed either. So if user scrolled, oh no, sorry, if not user scrolled, then we will set all good to false, as well as flag the error. Let's see. Okay, and then that error is cleared when they actually scroll. So let's go to our events, and we need to add the scroll event. So on scroll success, I'm going to remove the old one for the demo and do my own. Okay, and save that. Let's refresh. Oh wait, let's go to v.html and set our little quick go to button. Back to ptrial1. Go to viewer. Okay, so, oh, right. And of course, let's never forget to actually add our functions to block the user. So we have two things that we're doing here. So if it's not valid, we don't want to do either of them. So if valid, not consent, trial 1. We're going to wrap this in curly braces now. And Visual Studio likes to kill my indent when I add a curly brace. I don't know why. And let's recheck trial 1 when they, add input. So on input. Okay. Okay, so it gets cranky. If I scroll, it seems happy again. Okay. Now the next one is difficult. It kind of has a lot of options. A lot of things that can go wrong. So let's just start making a bunch of error messages. So let me copy my error message here. Oop, wrong way. Oh, let's actually copy both of these. That seems nice. Okay, so let's change these to trial2 error, trial2 scroll. I actually want my scroll message to appear at the top. There's a lot of errors here. Okay, so one potential error would be if they... Has this been broken bone the whole time? None found. Okay. Okay, so one type of error will be if they both click none found and also select abnormalities, so let's call that double. And we'll just say and this will wrap it in quotes, none found. Okay, and then we also want if they haven't done either of them, so this will be none. Let's see, it's do you must. You must select that, or diagnose tumors in the image. Oh, in. Okay, and then if they have actually selected some tumors, but they haven't filled in any of the diagnoses boxes, we'll have an error for that. Okay, so let's go to our valid. So in trial 2, we have both, none, no diagnosis. Okay, and I'm just going to copy and paste the scrolled stuff in, as well as the error message. Okay, so try 2 and 2. Okay, so let's count our clicks. So to do that, I'm going to go to customutil.js, and I'm going to add a click counter for each trial. I only have the one trial with click count, so I just used the one, but you would obviously need multiples if you had multiples. And it's a counter, so I'm going to start it out equaling 0. So if they're in the second one, then increment my counter. And then decrement my counter. This is if they're in the second one. Okay, and so while we're here, we also, because this can both clear and create errors, we need to recheck after we've decremented or incremented. Okay, now let's go to our custom validation functions. So let's let equal, what did we call this? Some big long thing. If it doesn't equal 0, then they must have clicked. Okay, so if clicks and I'm going to get my checkbox. Dot checked. Then all good equals false. And I need to flag that specific error. So it's true that it's an error. P trial to double error. Okay, and then because I'm flagging the error manually, I'm not using this all good, which is set, based on whether things are all good or not. I have to clear this error message as well manually. So else, and then this would be false. It's not an error. Okay, so let's do something similar. So if there aren't any clicks, and it's also not checked, then this would be the none error. Okay, and for these diagnoses, that one's a little difficult because we're creating these diagnosis boxes automatically. So go to custom.js for what we used in the demo, and we are going to do check in filled. Let's go down to where it's actually defined and copy this function. Go to custom valid, paste it in. Okay, so if not, check in filled, and at was that diag div where we actually put the diagnoses boxes. So this would be a string with that ID. The class name, like I said, we were using that for sorting, so that's that class name we put in at input in custom util. And so if it's not checked, then let's just copy and paste this. And then this would be diag error. Okay, and we also created this scroll error here as well, so let's clear the scroll error in custom util in our scroll event. So that's 2 now. Okay, so I'm going to change this to trial 2 at index 2. I'm going to change my trial 2 div to have the on input, recheck, trial 2, and down here at the bottom, let's do if valid trial 2, and remember to wrap both of these in curly braces. And fix the tabs. Okay, so let's try that. Save and refresh. And here. Okay, so let's see. 111. Okay, so what did I call this? Oh, well, that's embarrassing. Okay, that's a better name. Okay, so now I scroll, it clears. I can do that, it's happy. If I do that, it's again unhappy. Also, I need to diagnose it. And if I remove that, that's fine. If I remove that, that's fine. Yep. Alrighty, and we're done.